Good morning, a very good morning to you. Welcome to our premises here in Barcelona. And thank you for joining us for this very important ceremony, the launch of the second edition of the Progress Report on Regional Integration in the Union for the Mediterranean region. I'm Mohamed Al-Razez. I'm Head of Sector for Regional Integration at the Secretariat of the Union for the Mediterranean. And without further ado, for the opening session, please allow me to call into the stage the two Secretaries General, His Excellency Secretary General Nasser Kamel, the Secretary General of the Union for the Mediterranean, and His Excellency Matthias Kormann, the Secretary General of the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. If you would like to please join me. Excellency, if you would like to give the opening remarks, and then we will ask His Excellency also to deliver his remarks. So please.
Well, good morning, everyone. Secretary General, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to thank you all for being with us here today, but especially extend my sincere gratitude to our esteemed partners. First, the Organization, of course, for Economic Cooperation and Development, who elaborated this milestone report, but also to our German development cooperation partners who helped us financially make this report a reality. Those partnerships are extremely important, and they show the value of pooling efforts between partners. This report, this report should always come to mind not only as a wealth of data and policy recommendation, but also as a perfect example on our structured partnership with different partners, be it OECD or German Development Agency. Today, as you can see in the agenda of our gathering today, we are further consolidating this partnership with OECD, as I will be signing a new memorandum of understanding with His Excellency, the Secretary General Matthias Kormann, whom I really warmly welcome here in the premises of the UfM. I will not get into the technical details of the report because the experts who are among us today are better suited to do that, but I will instead stress the delicate nature of the geopolitical moment that our region is undergoing, and which throws, unfortunately, long shadows on all the efforts underway to promote regional integration as a prerequisite for a resilient and competitive region that can withstand global disruption and move higher up in the value chain curve. In a context of conflict, a context of humanitarian and political crisis, the ones who are most affected are usually the most vulnerable. Those who are disadvantaged already, and which are always at the heart of our work here at the Union for the Mediterranean. I don't know how to say it. Is it fortunately or unfortunately? Working around such conflicts has always been part of our DNA at the Union for the Mediterranean, simply because inaction is not an option. Having said that, the report that we are launching today gives us reason for hope. Trends and tendencies that clearly demonstrate that further integration is not only a potential, but also a reality in some fields and some areas of common priority. Another reality that is very much our own is the reform we are undergoing here at the UfM Secretariat to adapt and to be better suited to deal with current reality through a more agile and fit for purpose organization. Soon you will learn about all of that from our colleagues throughout this morning. Back to our region, I always say that we punch way below our strategic weights and also our economic potential, and that we have a pending collective exercise of unlocking the massive potential of this region. The report that we launch today provides not only success stories that can be scaled up and replicated, but also actionable pathways and policy recommendations that we are making available to our policymakers in the region, hoping that these recommendations would guide their strategic compass. I will not be myself here when we launch the third edition of this report, and no one can predict or postulate how our region and the world at large would look like by then, but there is one thing I know for sure and can share with you with absolute certainty. The status quo is not a strategy for survival, especially in a rapidly changing global arena. Our region does not need miracles. It needs a revolution in the mindset and a renewed commitment towards the very acquis of the Barcelona process that we launched together 30 years ago in Barcelona in 1995. What are those acquis? It's building an area of common peace, stability, security, and prosperity. And definitely economic integration alone cannot achieve these noble aims without a shared political will and determination. Allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to end my remark with a quote by our Egyptian Nobel Prize writer Naguib Mahfouz, who said, "Home is not where you are born. Home is where all your attempts to escape cease, where you want to stay." And I hope our region will still feel like home to everyone who dreams of a dignified life where there is access to jobs, quality education, social rights, free movement, and to all the other aspects necessary for economic and sustainable human development in the region, which are covered by the report we are launching today. I thank you very much for your attention. Thank you for being part of our ecosystem. And it is my pleasure to give the floor to His Excellency Matthias Cormann. Of course, he's the Secretary General of the Organization of Economic Cooperation and Development. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Nasser, Secretary General of the Union for the Mediterranean region, to my friend and colleague Gimo, the Ambassador for Spain to the OECD, also Christoph Rau from the German Ministry for Economic Development and Cooperation, distinguished guests, colleagues, friends all. A very warm welcome also from me to this launch of the second edition of the regional integration in the Union for the Mediterranean. This report takes stock of the progress in economic integration that has been made across the Union for the Mediterranean region since our last report, the inaugural report back in 2021. It also sets out recommendations for countries in the Union for the Mediterranean region to leverage further opportunities for economic integration to advance stability, peace and prosperity across the broader region. This diverse and dynamic region is central to global trade and connectivity. Indeed, with a GDP last year of about $22 trillion US. The Union for the Mediterranean region accounts for about 1/5 of global GDP. In 2023, the region contributed more than 31% of the world's merchandise exports at a value of over $7 trillion US. And this region is also an important population center. Indeed, it's a region which is home to almost 800 million people, representing 1/10 of the world population. It is also home to a very young population, in particular across the Middle East and North Africa regions, where young people under 15 years of age account for more than 30% of the total population compared to the global average of 25%. People in countries across the Mediterranean region have much to gain from deepening their ties, because more economic integration means more resilient supply chains and greater economic security through increased trade diversification, new opportunities for investors, new markets for businesses, and more job opportunities, better job opportunities for workers, and indeed improved productivity through the development of specialized industries, and all of that leading to increased incomes, well-being, and prosperity for all. The recommendations in our report are focused on supporting and encouraging policymakers across the region to unlock those opportunities. Firstly, by further boosting trade across and within the region through a new generation of trade agreements, which also cover services and digital trade. In 2023, Union for the Mediterranean countries were trading nearly twice as much with each other as they did with the rest of the world, to a total value of $4.4 trillion US, which was up by about 25% over the previous decade. As intra-regional trade grows, specialization in the region has shifted towards higher value-added products, such as machinery and chemicals. Existing trade agreements among economies in the region, however, predominantly focus on tangible goods, limiting opportunities to expand trade in services. Non-EU economies also face challenges in complying with EU regulatory requirements, including on sustainability, which can limit the ability of these economies to fully participate in regional value chains across the Union of Mediterranean region. Our report highlights the opportunity to develop new trade agreements that encompass services, financial flows, digital trade, and improve regulatory cooperation to help promote economic diversification towards higher value economic activities, and to support the development of regional value chains for both goods and services. Second, by boosting investment flows and local capital markets through enhanced regulatory certainty and fewer restrictions on foreign direct investment. Financial sector development across the region varies very substantially. Businesses in the Middle East and North Africa region and the Western Balkans, for example, experience persistent challenges in accessing financing for expansion and investment. There are opportunities to further develop local capital markets. If you look at the market capitalization of listed domestic companies, it is relatively low in Egypt, with an equivalent of 11% of GDP in 24, 16% in Tunisia, and 48% in Morocco. When you compare that with the dynamic growth regions or the growth economies in Southeast Asia, such as Malaysia and Thailand, which have a domestic listed companies value of 107 and 99% of GDP respectively, you can see how much opportunity there is to do better on that front. The ability of economies across the region to attract foreign investment also varies substantially. Inflows of foreign direct investment averaged 3.4% of GDP across the region last year, but were only 1.4% in the Middle East and North Africa. Stronger macroprudential policy frameworks and more transparent regulations on public listing of companies would help boost foreign investor confidence and facilitate cross-border capital flows. Easing restrictions on foreign direct investment by streamlining approval procedures would also help deepen capital markets and boost domestic access to finance. Third, by further developing infrastructure that supports trade connectivity. High-quality infrastructure is absolutely needed to support expanded trade across the region. This includes boosting ship handling capacity and port services in Middle East and North African, Western Balkans, and the Levant economies, which are below EU and OECD averages. And more investment is needed to enhance rail links between ports and commercial centers to complement existing road links. Encouraging public-private partnerships in infrastructure projects would help unlock the necessary financing. Further engaging in regional cooperation platforms, including through the Union for the Mediterranean and the OECD, will also help align standards and planning across borders and strengthen the connectivity of infrastructure networks and supply chains across the region. Our partnership with the Union for the Mediterranean will continue to be a catalyst for policy reforms and initiatives that advance economic integration across the Union for the Mediterranean region. I'm pleased to mark this commitment today by signing a renewed Memorandum of Understanding with my good friend and colleague, Secretary General Nasser Kamel, to continue building our cooperation. We very much look forward to continuing our work together towards a more integrated, resilient, and prosperous future for the region of the Union for the Mediterranean and its people. And I do hope that I will be here for the presentation of the next progress report. Thank you.
Yes, please. Thank you very much, Excellencies. And we move immediately to the keynote speeches. I'm looking at the technical team. Do we have ready the video message by Her Excellency? Okay. We will now listen to a video message by Her Excellency Rania Al-Mashat, the Minister of Planning, Economic Development, and International Cooperation of the Arab Republic of Egypt. So please, you can project the video message.
Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, partners, and friends, it's a pleasure to join you today at the launching ceremony of the Regional Integration in the Union for the Mediterranean Progress Report, highlighting the state of integration in the region and the road ahead in advancing connectivity and trade across the Mediterranean. Our region is bound not only by geography, but by shared histories, values, and aspirations. Together, we have the responsibility to transform these values into pathways for resilience, opportunity, and sustainable development. In Egypt, we have long recognized the power of regional cooperation to strengthen economic transformation and advance sustainable development. Guided by Egypt's Vision 2030 and the government's program, our recently launched National Narrative for Economic Development serves as an integrated framework for economic reforms that ensures the resilience and competitiveness of our economy. The narrative emphasizes expanding the role of tradable, high-productivity sectors and promoting export-oriented growth. In this regard, we see regional integration as a key cornerstone for achieving these objectives. Excellencies, Egypt's journey under the MENA OECD initiative and the Egypt OECD country program demonstrates the transformative power of strategic partnership. Over the last 2 decades, our collaboration with the OECD has evolved from active engagement in regional initiatives to the initiation of the Egypt OECD country program in 2021. This framework has strengthened Egypt's capacity to ensure more dynamic investment flows and trade linkages. For instance, the projects focusing on productivity, business dynamics, and the inclusion of Egypt in trade and value added are key factors in enhancing our national statistical systems in areas related to regional and global value chains. These efforts are enabling Egypt to maximize integration into regional trade networks. Furthermore, as Egypt assumes the role of co-chair of the MENA OECD Initiative on Governance and Competitiveness for Development, we are guided by a vision that reflects both our national priorities and our shared regional ambitions. This vision focuses on resilience, connectivity, and sustainable green and inclusive transition. Ladies and gentlemen, as we look to the future, we firmly believe that the Union for the Mediterranean can serve as a powerful platform for advancing sustainable development, promoting cross-border collaboration, sustainable investment flows, and resilient infrastructure. By aligning regional cooperation with national transformation, we can build a stronger, more resilient Mediterranean region, one where integration is not an aspiration, but a lived reality. Through deeper connectivity, we can collectively boost trade and investment, diversify our economies, and ensure that integration becomes a driver of resilience and prosperity for all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And now it's my pleasure to call upon the other prominent speakers in the keynote segment for today. So if I may call upon His Excellency Joaquin Francisco Puig Farré, the Ambassador of the Kingdom of Spain to OECD, to join us here at the stage, and to also call upon Mr. Christoph Rauch, the Africa Director at the Federal Ministry of Economic Development and Cooperation of Germany, BMZ. If I may ask them both to join us here and to deliver the keynote speeches, please.
Bonjour, merci. Cher secrétaire général Nasser Kamel, cher secrétaire général, cher Mathias Korman, mon ami, ministre, collègues, mesdames et messieurs. C'est un honneur pour moi de prendre la parole à l'occasion de la présentation de cette deuxième édition du rapport sur l'intégration régionale au sein de l'Union pour la Méditerranée. Comme le soulignait le secrétaire général Nasser Kamel, cet événement intervient à un moment symbolique, à l'approche de la 30e anniversaire du processus de Barcelone. Ce rapport réaffirme la validité de cet esprit fondateur et fidèle à ses visions, l'Espagne réaffirme aujourd'hui un triple engagement. Premièrement, envers l'Union pour la Méditerranée, que nous sommes fiers d'accueillir à Barcelone. Deuxièmement, envers l'OCDE, dont la méthodologie aujourd'hui assez rigoureuse et est essentielle pour guider les réformes dans la région grâce à son programme de compétitivité OCDE MENA, qui soutient le climat d'investissement, la compétitivité et l'intégration économique. Et troisièmement, avec nos partenaires méditerranéens, avec lesquels nous partageons l'objectif de bâtir un avenir de prospérité et de stabilité. En tant qu'ambassadeur auprès de l'OCDE, je tiens à saluer l'excellent travail collaboratif que représente ce document. Merci, Carlos. Les rigueurs scientifiques et la méthodologie fondée sur des données provenant de l'organisation nous fournissent un diagnostic précis et plus précieux encore des recommandations concrètes et pragmatiques. La valeur de ces rapports dépasse l'Union pour la Méditerranée elle-même. Pour l'OCDE, représente la concrétisation de son engagement envers la région. Et pour les États membres, comme l'Espagne, il constitue une feuille de route qui nourrit le travail bilatéral avec les partenaires des deux rives de la Méditerranée. Le rapport souligne les progrès réalisés. Il témoigne d'une intégration croissante dans des chaînes de valeur de meilleure qualité et révèle le renforcement des liens productifs au sein même de la région. Sur la base de ces progrès, nous partageons pleinement la vision des rapports lorsqu'il définit les axes d'action prioritaires. En particulier, un aspect crucial, la double accord mis sur la connectivité, à la fois physique, que des infrastructures et leurs catalyseurs, et l'humain par des alliances de talents. Cela unis davantage, mieux connectés et la réponse stratégique pour libérer l'énorme potentiel qui reste à développer. Ce n'est pas une utopie, c'est un horizon immense. Un avenir de prospérité partagée, d'échanges commerciaux fluides et d'opportunités pour nos jeunes. Cependant, nous ne pourrons ignorer le contexte. La paix et la stabilité sont des conditions sine qua non à la matérialisation de ce potentiel. La grave situation d'instabilité qui touche à la région rappelle brutalement les coûts extrêmement élevés, surtout humains, mais aussi social et économique, de la non-coopération et des conflits. Permettez-moi de citer un écrivain méditerranéen, le romancier libanais Elias Kouney, qui nous rappelle une leçon fondamentale de l'histoire. Toutes les tragédies humaines sont liées. Il n'existe qu'une seule tragédie humaine, tout comme il n'existe qu'une seule nature humaine. De même, il n'existe qu'une seule Méditerranée. Par conséquent, prenons soin de la Méditerranée. C'est le rapport que nous présentons aujourd'hui encourage, il nous indique la voie technique à suivre et il exige de nous redoublons d'efforts diplomatiques et politiques. Il nous incite à agir et cela exige du courage. Parfois, la peur freine le changement, mais la peur n'empêche pas la mort. La peur empêche la vie, comme a écrit le prix Nobel égyptien et compatriote de notre secrétaire général, Massouf. Aujourd'hui, mesdames et messieurs, nous n'avons qu'un seul choix devant nous, soit le coût élevé de la fragmentation, soit l'immense valeur de la coopération. Mettons de côté les peurs et la méfiance. Unisons nos forces, unisons nos davantage, connectons-nous mieux. Merci beaucoup. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Please join us at the stage. And we should have a video message now, but since we have Mr. Christoph Rauch, please, I'll give you the floor immediately. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Dear Secretary General, dear Nasser Kamel, dear Secretary General of the OECD, Mr. Common, Excellencies, distinguished guests. Nasser, you referred to the ecosystem of UfM, and let me just say that I'm proud, Germany is proud to be part of the ecosystem of the UfM, and it's always a pleasure to be here. The progress report we launched today is more than a technical document. It's a strategic compass. It offers evidence, it offers direction and reflection, and reminds us that the regional integration is not just an abstract ambition. It is a concrete shared endeavor, essential for prosperity, resilience, and peace in the Mediterranean region. And Germany is pleased to have supported financially the 25th edition of the report and also the predecessor launched in 21. I cannot promise today that we will be on board for the next edition, but we will do our best, of course. It comes at a particular opportune moment to feed in to the new pact for the Mediterranean between the EU and its southern neighborhood, which will be launched here, as I understand, later this year. Or even better, endorsed. And the 25th edition of the Progress Report provides a data-driven basis to track on-the-ground development, and informed policy. I will not highlight all our takeaways of this report because some of them were already mentioned before by Mr. Corman. So let me just refer to a couple of points I would like to highlight. A key development, that's one of the results of this report, which says that a key development in economic integration is Africa's push toward continental integration through the African Continental Free Trade Area, which seeks to boost intra-African trade and strengthen the continent's global trade position. And the report finds evidence for growing trade interdependence between North Africa and Sub-Saharan Africa, which provides potential for more regional value chains, including in higher value industrial sectors such as machinery, chemicals, and transport equipment. And it cannot be said often enough, with its strategic location, North Africa can play a crucial role as a bridge by deepening value chains with Europe and with the whole African continent. And we invite companies from both shores of the Mediterranean to harness this opportunity and make use of the support we provide as Germany and EU to foster regional economic integration. I also would like to highlight that there is a growing regional recognition of the need for improved migration management, and this report also highlights emerging models for legal mobility, notably through the EU Skills and Talent Partnership programs. And last point, we particularly welcome the additions in the second edition of the report, notably gender equality, digitalization, and environmental protection as so-called cross-cutting issues. These dimensions are fundamental components of a fair and sustainable integration that leaves no one behind in a connected Mediterranean region. These dimensions are also of particular importance for Germany's development cooperation. The Progress Report is connected to the UfM's capacity to convene, to analyze, and to deliver. And through our support to the UfM Secretariat and the UfM Hub for Jobs, Trade, and Investment, Germany has contributed to strengthening this capacity in the last years. The findings of the Progress Report also feed directly into the Team Europe initiative called Jobs Through Trade and Investment, which Germany coordinates together with our friends from the EU Commission and other partners. But despite progress, challenges remain, including fragmentation, uneven development, as well as political rivalries and conflict. We encourage all stakeholders to actively use this report as a tool to guide policy and plan activities that address those challenges and generate positive impact on the ground. Therefore, we also would like to encourage you to make this report as public as possible and also foresee an outreach. We will discuss it later, possibilities also to go to individual member states. Dear guests, in my view, the role of the UfM is vital for the development of the region and addressing its common challenges. We particularly welcome the reform process which has been launched with a view to updating the UfM vision to the present political, economic, environmental landscape. Germany is a keen contributor to the reform process, and through our support to the UfM Secretariat, we also want to contribute to a successful implementation of the reform agenda in the years to come. Allow me finally to express our sincere appreciation to the Union for the Mediterranean Secretariat for convening this important event and for their dedication to advancing regional integration in the Euro-Mediterranean region. Germany remains a committed partner to the UfM and its member states. And of course, we also would like to thank the OECD for its analytical excellence. Thank you very much.
Please.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. We now have a short video message by His Excellency Mr. Francisco Gastello, Director of North Africa of the Directorate General for the Middle East, North Africa, and the Gulf, DG MENA. So, if you could please project it.
Thank you for inviting me to the presentation of the report on regional integration in the Union for the Mediterranean. The EU is committed to facilitating this integration among the Mediterranean countries and EU member states. The European Union and our partners have been working on the new Pact for the Mediterranean, which is an ambitious effort to strengthen the relationship with Southern Mediterranean partners by fostering deeper integration and to achieve a common space of peace, prosperity, and stability. For this, we consulted very widely our member states, our partner countries, international organizations, and civil society. I'm not with you today precisely because we are discussing it in Rabat. The new pact will be presented as a joint communication from the Commissioner for the Mediterranean and the HRVP, the High Representative of the EU, this autumn, and will be endorsed at the 30th anniversary of the Barcelona Declaration, on the occasion of the UfM Regional Forum. The new pact will deepen cooperation in areas of mutual interest for the EU and Southern Mediterranean partners to support stability, peace and resilience and socio-economic growth, and will serve to jointly deliver tangible improvement for businesses, people and societies around three main areas. The first one is people first, focusing on education, developing talents, vocational training, skills, jobs, tourism and sport and culture. Second, a stronger and more integrated economies, covering cooperation on trade, investment, job creation, energy, clean technologies, water resilience, climate preparedness, digital and transport connectivity. In the third area, security, resilience and migration management. Many recommendations of the report that you are discussing today converges with the content of the new pact. Now we need to take action on the means that we agree on. The UfM is a key player to design policies to achieve shared objectives. Concerning people-to-people relations and human mobility, we fully support the recommendation to promote the exchange of knowledge, skills, human capital between countries. This moment represents an opportunity to bridge demographic divides and leverage on complementarity and economic dynamics. The European Commission has developed initiatives aimed to link skills, jobs and mobility, such as talent partnerships and our strategic and comprehensive partnerships. The new pact aims to link skills, jobs and mobility across the Euro-Mediterranean region, and we're discussing means to further improve mobility of students and to reinforce cooperation among universities. Concerning the economic and trade challenges, the OECD report shows convergence, some trade integration, but also differences in speed and quality of the economic trajectories. This is not surprising, as the UfM includes now very diverse socioeconomic models. The report also shows that the countries that display the best performance exhibit the greatest economic integration with their neighbors, and that efficient intermodal transport infrastructures are necessary to take advantage of comparative advantages to optimize the regional value chains. Therefore, we welcome the OECD's recommendation on making regional trade more inclusive. A lot has been done to integrate our economies through trade and investments, and we have launched a Team Europe initiative together with Germany, France, Spain, and Italy, the EIB and the EBRD. This initiative aims at creating jobs through trade and investment, addressing sustainable trade and investment, vocational training and skills, and inclusive entrepreneurship. This Team Europe initiative is conducted with a close involvement of the UfM. As recommended in the report, the new pact will propose means to invest and improve transport and digital infrastructures and facilities. The UfM is instrumental in helping the necessary policy convergence and design of the networks. The report also highlights the importance of well-functioning financial markets and financial inclusivity. Together with our member states, we are using the full EU toolbox to foster prosperity and help stabilize fragile situations where needed, from microfinancial assistance, budget support to de-risking tools for public-private investments and capacity development. This includes promoting entrepreneurship, inclusive economy, women empowerment, and the twin green digital transition in the region. The new pact will provide a new impetus in this respect. Availability of sustainable energy is highlighted as conditions necessary for growth, with significant needs in terms of investments and of policies. We will need to boost renewable energy investments across southern Mediterranean countries to facilitate the energy transition, also at the light of the growing electricity demand in North Africa that require collaborative cross-border projects and infrastructure initiatives. The new pact will continue to support the green transition, to address common challenges such as climate impacts, and to jointly reap the economic opportunities associated with it. With the new pact, we are planning to roll out the TMED, the Trans-Mediterranean Energy and Clean Tech Initiative, to encourage renewable energy and clean tech development, facilitating an investment platform. Regulatory reforms are crucial for enhancing market openness and mitigating investment risks, particularly in renewables, and this is where the UfM is again instrumental. There is a long-standing cooperation on climate and energy with the region and within the UfM that is pivotal on promoting policy dialogue through its technical platforms and at political level. If there is one message in this report, is that socio-economic integration leads to growth. The UfM is the best engine of this integration. We need to make sure that it delivers on its mission and that it adapts to the changing geopolitical conditions. For this, we have collectively designed a reform that we must continue. And we need a stable, strong governance, and we need to commit to providing the necessary human and financial resources to the institution. Thank you for your attention, and I wish you a very fruitful event.
Now is the time for the MOU signature. We have one more video message that we will project afterwards to respect the schedule. So I ask the colleagues to please bring the table, because now is the ceremony for the signature of the Memorandum of Understanding between the Secretariat of the Union for the Mediterranean and the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. I also call upon our colleague and partner, Carlos Conde, to help with the protocol for the signature. Please. Thank you very much. We now have a coffee break, and for the two Secretaries General, we have the press briefing. Thank you. See you later. Muchas gracias. Si también podemos agua para los conferenciantes. All right. My colleagues are ushering everyone back into the room for 2 back-to-back technical sessions. But ahead of that, and before I invite Carlos Conde, who will be moderating this first panel, with your permission, we have 2 short videos. One of them is by the director of the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation, Dima Al-Khatib. And in case you didn't know, today is the International UN Day for South-South Cooperation. So it comes very handy. They are celebrating with a big event today, to which we also contributed a video message, but they want to be part of the launching because obviously it's all about integration, and we all know how important South-South and triangular cooperation is as an integral part of the overall regional integration. So without further ado, I ask the colleagues at the back, if you can please project a very short 2-minute video by Dr. Dima Al-Khatib, after which we will show a video by OECD about the key findings of the report. Then I'll call on Mr. Carlos Conde and the speakers of the first panel. Please.
Excellencies, colleagues and friends, the United Nations Office for South-South Cooperation is privileged to be part of this launch of the Progress Report on regional integration in the Euro-Mediterranean region. I congratulate and commend the Union for the Mediterranean and its partners for producing this edition. Geopolitical and economic fragmentation, financial distress and uncertainties mark our global landscape today, and this report serves to illustrate the crucial role of regional integration and cooperation as pillars of global solidarity. It is worth noting that the report is launched today. Also, we are celebrating today the International United Nations Day for South-South Cooperation. Focusing on translating commitments into action and ensuring that no country is left behind, we are commemorating this day under the theme New Opportunities and Innovation through South-South and Triangle Cooperation. First, to underscore the capacity of the countries of the Global South to respond collectively to complex and transboundary challenges. Also to highlight that South-South and Triangle Cooperation are mobilizing local and peer-adapted solutions, promoting inclusive partnerships and enabling innovative, scalable approaches. Also to elevate the impact of Triangle Cooperation, guided by South-South principles of self-reliance and support that poses no burden and only ensures mutual benefit. And to emphasize that harnessing South-South's potential is key to accelerating progress on the SDGs and building a more just, peaceful and sustainable world for all. In bringing together the northern and the southern shores of the Mediterranean around common goals pursued through dialogue and cooperation, the Union for the Mediterranean is exemplifying South-South and Triangle Cooperation. And we at UNOSSC value your championship of this cooperation modality. And we look forward to continuing the collaboration with the Union for the Mediterranean to jointly advance South-South and Triangle Cooperation in support of its member countries. UNOSSC stands ready to work with you to systematically leverage this transformative potential of South-South and Triangle Cooperation as a complement to traditional development cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And if we can immediately put the other video developed by OECD with the key findings and policy recommendations emanating from the report. Thank you. Thank you very much. Now it is my pleasure to call upon the moderator of the first panel for today, dedicated to trade and finance integration, Mr. Carlos Conde, Head of Middle East and Africa Division, Executive Advisor for the Istanbul Center, Global Relations and Cooperation Directorate of OECD. Please, dear Carlos. You want me to call upon your participants? Yes? Okay. I'll also invite to the floor the panelists for this first session. So please join us, Ambassador Sinan Florenza, the Executive President of the European Institute of the Mediterranean, EMED, Dr. Ahmed Kameli, Associate Professor, Department of Economics at the American University of Cairo in Egypt, and Professor Fatma Marrakshi Cherfi, the Director of the Laboratory of Economic Integration at the University of Tunis Al-Manar of Tunisia. We will also have a video message towards the end of this panel by the Secretary General of the Union of Arab Banks, Dr. Wissam Fattouh. So, dear Carlos, all yours.
Thank you very much, dear Mohammed. Thank you, everybody, for being here this morning. We started already with excellent and very insightful speeches from the Secretary Generals of the OECD and the UfM. You have seen already in this small video some summary of the report with some of the conclusions and some of the objectives. So I'm very glad to show you the publication, which is the result of a year and a half of hard work from the UfM and the OECD through many secretariats, and thank you to the German cooperation for making this possible. The report is publishing online in this morning in the 3 versions in English, French, and Arabic. So help us to disseminate the results, please, and to make sure that the report is well distributed. Actually, the report, the second edition, intends not only to put together data, indicators, and evidence, but also is intended to prepare action. And I think these were very clear messages from the Secretary Generals this morning that economic integration is fundamental to provide stability and prosperity to the region. That is important to have the information, to have the evaluation and the diagnosis, but then there is a call for policymakers to implement the necessary reforms and to establish the platforms of collaboration and the initiatives that will make these results done and achieved. The report has been submitted to a very broad process of consultation. The different chapters, the different policy areas where the preliminary results were shared with panels of experts, of policymakers, very relevant from the different shores of the Mediterranean. So these policy recommendations, in a way, they are legitimate by this filter of the knowledge and the very practical and pragmatic views of the daily practitioners of integration. This is not a theoretical exercise, it's really providing recommendations about feasible integration, the integration that is important, but the integration that is also realistic in a way that we can also think in the results and evaluating the results. So the report is really, there is a call for implementation. We were very pleased this morning listening about the progress, for example, in the Pact of the Mediterranean, but also some national agendas like the National Agenda of Reform of Egypt, the Vision 2030 that Minister Al-Mashad shared with us. The idea of this report is providing also analytical support, data, evidence to the different regional and national initiatives to altogether achieving the results that are necessary on economic, social, and also political dimension. Well, in this first panel, we will focus on 2 of the chapters of the report on trade and financial integration that show very well some of the opportunities and challenges of the region. I will not go through different aspects that have already been mentioned in the speeches of this morning. But we see here in trade and financial integration some good opportunities, some good progress that has been happening during the last years, but at the same time, some bottlenecks, some gaps that still have not received sufficient attention and require regional strategies to find also common ways of achieving better economic performance. When it comes to trade, we observe that intra-regional trade in goods in the UfM has been growing compared to the data of the first report in 21. And this is a positive development. And it is especially positive because in the middle we suffered the impact of the pandemic. And the countries have shown a very high level of resilience. The trade exchanges very quickly recovered after the pandemic, and they have even improved in relation to the situation before. But this is not only the increase of the trade, it's also the composition of the trade. First of all, between the different spaces of the Mediterranean. The European Union is, of course, the main trade partner of all, but we see that there are extremely positive trends for more exchanges. Turkey is playing a very important role, but also see that exchanges between Middle East and North African countries are also increasing, and South-South exchanges are also increasing. Also very good for the trade composition. It was highlighted this morning that trade is going into higher value-added sectors. Machinery, chemicals were mentioning. So we see that there is a process of diversification of the economies that is visible already in the trade exchanges. And this is mutually influential. So more trade provides more diversification. More diversification is, of course, facilitating there is more trade. Challenges. Well, we see that this is an interesting case in which the structural conditions sometimes are quicker and more positive than the policy frameworks and the institutional frameworks. Because what the experts and the report observe is that the trade agreements are not up to date in how they are channeling and how they are enhancing the potential of trade for the economies of the region. So it's a very concrete and practical, let's say, recommendation that it's important to think about the quality of the institutional and legal frameworks. Then going to finance, we see that the financial development in the region remains very fragmented. The financial sectors across the UfM region remain very heterogeneous. They reveal the different levels of development and integration, and the lack of mobilization of all the opportunities that financial markets provide. There is a predominance of bank-based financing with a lack of utilization of other tools that are necessary if the overall goal, as we are mentioning, is building more diversified and competitive economies with more capacity to provide the conditions for the private sector to create more jobs. So this is an area that requires attention. We are very glad that together with the UfM and the EMED, we are convening in Cairo in 1 month, in October 1st, the 9th conference of governors of central banks of Mediterranean countries with an important leadership of Banco de España. We will share with them the results and the conclusions of this report, because this is an area that requires action, because it's really an enabler of the other dimensions of economic growth. Also a lot to do in foreign direct investment, especially in southern Mediterranean countries. I will give you just one figure that shows the potential that has to be exploited. While FDI averages 2.9% of GDP in MENA countries, it is 6.1% in Western Balkans. So it's really a big difference that shows that working on the investment policies, on the regulatory frameworks, on removing restrictions to investment can contribute very significantly to the economic growth of the countries. This is just a couple of examples about how the report links evidence, data, indicators but also with concrete policy recommendations that should be actionable, and hopefully in 3-4 years being back here in Barcelona in the UfM with more good news and some progress achieved in some of these areas. Well, to discuss and have a very open dialogue with you, and many people are following us online, so most of the countries of the Mediterranean are also connected to us in this moment. We have a very distinguished panel of great experts and practitioners of integration in the Mediterranean from different angles, very good friends, and great contributors to this report in the process of consultations and during all the process. I will start at my right with Ambassador Senen Florenza, President of the IMF, with very long experience in diplomatic affairs and a champion of Mediterranean integration for many, many years, including the first moment of the process of Barcelona, including the reflections that brought to the process of Barcelona. Then we will celebrate very soon here the 30th anniversary. So I would like to start with this, with a strategic and historical vision. The ambitions of the process of Barcelona 30 years ago were big in a moment in which probably I think the different shores of the Mediterranean were very disconnected and needed institutional solutions, and this was the ambition of the process. What is your view, Senen, after the years? What is what we have achieved, but also what are the challenges that we have in front of us?
Okay, so thank you very much, Carlos. Really, it's indeed a pleasure and an honor to be with you this morning at this very special occasion. I have to thank LCDE and the German cooperation and of course the Union for the Mediterranean for this new report. It reminds me very much, since you are going back to history, my years as a student of economics and then young faculty member and then professor of international economics at the period when Spain was modernizing itself institutionally and in the economy, etc. And I remember very well the annual report of the OCDE on the Spanish economy, which was really a guiding companion, so to say, for the economic policy in Spain. And I think it helped a lot to modernize the Spanish economy, which helped a lot as well to modernize overall even the institutions in the country based on this economic modernization. And I hope really that these reports that you are now producing for the Euromed area will help other countries to do the same, to modernize their political structures based on the modernization of their economic policies and the practice of removing hindrances and barriers that very often occur in countries which have not yet gone through this period of, let me call it so, modernizing especially their economic policies regarding trade, which finds still a lot of protectionism measures and tools one way or another. Not only tariff, non-tariff barriers are maybe today much more important than tariff barriers, although there has been some advances in that respect. And as well for the financial sector, well, I've been for years in Southern Mediterranean countries, as ambassador into Tunisia, or working with them all for many years. And I think that they have been advances, but certainly the overall structure of the financial sector, as you just mentioned, they are too much relying on banking, finance, not on all other tools in the open market, etc. And even in the banking sector, a bit of a traditional way of conducting banking sector. I'm not an expert, but I was a client and I could appreciate the differences of the possibilities to operate, which is very important in these countries, especially because there is a large sector still, although they are very much improving, but there is a large sector of informal economy, and so they find even more hindrance to get financement for their projects, create jobs for young people, for women, etc. And well, I think that this report will shed light on the real state of the economies in Mediterranean partner countries mainly, and it will help a lot, as it did help us in Spain when we most needed it. So really, thank you very much for doing it, and really thanks to the German corporation for financing it, because it's a key issue on the whole business in Euro-Mediterranean affairs, so to say. Well, now you were mentioning the fact that it is, of course, an important thing that this year it is the 30th anniversary of the Barcelona process. So it's a right moment to just stop for a minute, reflect, discuss with some friends and people who have sound opinions on how things have gone, and to see what comes next, what should be done. And of course, your report is an important piece of knowledge to base this action. And as you have mentioned as well, the European Commission is preparing this new pact for the Mediterranean. We have been very much instrumental for that, as much as we could, at the requirement of the European Commission. Maybe we can mention it later on. We conducted this very large consultation to hear other voices, not only governments. They conducted directly the dialogue and consultation with governments, and we conducted the consultations to a large spectrum of civil society, academia, private sector, etc. This 30th anniversary of the Barcelona process, I think it's an important point in time to recall the way we have gone and what comes next, as I was saying, and what has to be done. I think that we've gone through different periods in very different and sometimes extremely difficult circumstances. Because 95, as you all know, was a period of optimism. After the fall of Berlin Wall, after the Madrid conference, the Oslo agreements, etc., we thought even at that moment that the peace in the Middle East was achievable, even I would say in the short run. And we were at that time, it is true that I was involved in the theoretical preparation of these agreements then as Director General at our ministry in Madrid for international cooperation with the Arab world and the Mediterranean and so on. And well, we thought that it was achievable because we could gain on the results. We said it to profit of the dividends of peace. That was the language of that time. You may recall it. Unfortunately, the things were not in that way, and we have had many hindrances and instability and worse, maybe sometimes a bit further than the Euromed area itself, but starting the wars in Afghanistan, and then Iraq, and then in Libya, and then in Syria, etc. And well, of course, instability is not the best environment for investment and economic progress, modernization of the institutions, etc. And so we have suffered a lot of that. But I would say that we have kept the cape because, well, we launched it in 95. So the big vision of, I would say even, it is true for, let me say it so, for the first time, a common vision, north and south of the Mediterranean, upon which everybody agreed upon, to build around the Mediterranean area of peace and stability, as it is very well known, an area of shared economic progress, an area of intercultural dialogue and understanding among peoples and North and South, and nations of south of the Mediterranean, etc. Then already in 2002, we had achieved most of the bilateral treaties for this association of all different countries, and so, except the ones who wouldn't play the game. Serbia, we've seen the results, unfortunately. Libya, we've seen the results, unfortunately. And, well, some other a bit more reticence, but certainly the countries who played the game have probably the ones who have advanced the most. I've just mentioned it because it's our nearest neighbors, but Morocco is a case in this respect. I'm not prioritizing Morocco over others. I'm mentioning it because it's just our neighbors, and they are a good example of that. Then we not only finished this business of, we created in the political sphere, the Euro Parliamentary Assembly, for example, in the economic sphere, the FEMIP of the European Investment Bank, which was an extremely important tool for that. And we created for this third pillar of cultural dialogue, the Annalyn Foundation. So by 2002 already we achieved a lot in the preparation of the whole game. And then in 2004 started the preparation of the European Neighbourhood Policy. I remember President of the Commission, Romano Prodi. I was ambassador then in Tunisia. He came over to explain it to the Tunisian authorities, and they called all ambassadors there. And it was really a vision. And this was to go deeper in the association, especially in the bilateral track with each one of the countries through the European Neighbourhood Policy. And then starting 2008, the building of the Union for the Mediterranean with its secretariat established starting 2010 here in Barcelona in these premises. And this has helped to go much deeper in the, well, working on Euro-Mediterranean integration from a regional point of view. So there are, just me mention some shortcomings, which, because they are important, I will finish in a minute with that. We promised to have free trade zone general in 2010. This was not possible. What we have instead is a series of bilateral free trade zones with each Euro-Moroccan, Euro-Tunisian, Euro-Egyptian, etc., because it was not possible to have agreements South-South. And there are many other shortcomings. I won't take more time for that, but certainly the integration is proceeding, but it's behind schedule. And I hope that the report will help us to overcome this fragmentation of the regulations, for example, and well, we've gone some other, we've received the impact of some other crises, economic and financial crises in 2008 and following, with the COVID, etc. We are on the way, but we have still a lot to do.
Thank you very much, Ambassador. I move to the next panelist. Dear Dr. Ahmed Kamali, Professor of Economics in the American University of Cairo, a very instrumental person in all the work of the OECD across the region and especially in Egypt. Dr. Kamali has been for many years Deputy Minister of Economic Development and Planning in Egypt, a very important actor in all the process of economic reform in Egypt, but also in the economic integration across the world from a very significant position as a policymaker, but also we took a lot of advantage of his expertise for the elaboration of this report. He has been advising on its elaboration and conclusion. So it's a pleasure that he came from Cairo to be with us today. Ahmed, it has been said already, Egypt has historically played a very central role in interconnections across the world and in trade. And when we are talking about connectivity, inevitably comes to us the Suez Canal as the most achieved example of the connection between infrastructure and trade, which we have observed in the report is one of the obstacles to integration. We could achieve much more in trade if the infrastructure gaps were fulfilled. From your perspective, what are the ways of moving forward in a positive manner, but also how can we better connect national strategies and regional strategies, because what we are observing is that the fragmentation in the Mediterranean has a big cost in the performance of trade and exchanges. Please.
All right, thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. It's an honor to be part of this very important event and to be part of this distinguished panel. The report, I think the report, it's a milestone. The report is very good, interesting report. Just before tackling your question, I just want to say something about the report, that when we were talking and report and kind of reading the different chapters and so on, one of the things about this report is that it provides some specific policy recommendations. And this is quite important and at the same time quite challenging, because we're not talking about specific, we're not the recommendation for specific countries. We're doing it for the region, for the Mediterranean. So it's not easy. But getting into specific policy recommendation, I think this is extremely important. Second point that I want to make on the report, this is a huge report. And I think it is quite important for the UfM and the OECD is to try to make use of the report to come up maybe with some discussions, some panels, some policy briefs to discuss the different policy recommendations that was offered and the different stylized facts that are in the report. Right, so just like something about the report. Let me now tackle the very important question that you have mentioned. But let me start with, you started by the Suez Canal. Now, Suez Canal, of course, it's, I would say, not because I'm Egyptian, because it is the main vein of trade between East and West. However, the Egypt experience with Suez Canal shows us that infrastructure by itself is not enough. This is very, very important point, right? So if we want to have integration, we need a multifaceted approach, right? So that combines physical, combines registrative and digital integration. Now, you talked about the limitation, and allow me to kind of talk a little bit about the limitation, and this is something that the report provided some evidence for these limitations, and these limitations are not they are mainly applied to the South Mediterranean and Egypt as well. So these are quite important limitations that we should tackle and we should look at in order to see ways to remove these challenges and this limitation. The first one, I identify 4 of these limitations. The first one is, and this is very much documented in the report, is the weak multimodal transport networks. So the problems in lots of South Mediterranean, Med and Egypt as well, is that we don't have approach of multimodal transport networks. So everything is kind of, not everything, but you have the maritime in one side, you have the ground transportation, you have the air freight and so on. But what is important is just to try to think in a multimodal way, because in order to benefit from these different networks. This is the first limitation, and this is quite evident. The second limitation, which is also quite evident, is the problem in terms of the soft infrastructure. So we don't have, we lack to a great extent harmonized custom procedures. We have inconsistency in terms of technical. We have governors fragmentations. All of these, they contribute very much. So it's keep on going, coming in. So thank you. So thank you. So all of these, this is much better. So all of these things, you know, they contribute very much to the weak soft infrastructure. So we have soft infrastructure bottlenecks in the South Mediterranean countries. We have to say, and this is something that is again documented by the report, there is a significant improvement in terms of physical infrastructure, right? But soft infrastructure remains very, very problematic in the South Mediterranean. One of the things, the third limitation, which is extremely, extremely important and few people talk about, is the idea of inadequate digital infrastructure, right? So, and the report talked about digitization and the importance of digitization. However, digitization, in terms of supporting the logistical service and trade, is extremely important, right? So you can have ports, you can put lots of funds in making roads, in making highways, in improving the capacity of ports, but at the same time, if you don't have a digital infrastructure to support this and to improve the connectivity, then in this case, parts of, or big part of this funds is not going to be efficient, right? So you have to have the support in terms of digital infrastructure. The fourth point and the fourth limitation, and the report talked about it, but not that much, but I think it's extremely important, is the large public sector footprint in the economy. If we want to, you know, in the North Mediterranean, the private sector is leading the economy, right? Now, the private sector like very much to talk with the private sector. The idea of talking with public sector and all of these kind of politics, maybe sometimes it's not that, you know, it's not that adequate, right? So it would be better for the private sector to talk with the private sector. So we need to, in the South Mediterranean, to try to reduce as much as possible the large public sector footprint in the economy in all sectors, right? Not in one or two sectors, but in all sectors. So these are the four limitations that we can identify. Now, in the second part of the question talks about, and you mentioned about the national versus regional strategies. So let me quickly, again, kind of share with you kind of 4 points in order to make this transition between inspections for goods moving from the south or from the north to the south, or from the south to the south, or from the south to the south, different within the Mediterranean. So this is, again, it's important. We always say one of the main obstacle in front of investment and trade is the cost of transaction. Now, dealing with this, having this mutual recognition agreement, it reduces very much the cost of a transaction, facilitate the transactions, and make it much, much quicker. The third, which is, I would say, not easy. Maybe the first and second, they're not that difficult, and we can achieve them. The third one, which is a channel, it's indeed a channel, but it is important, it has so many benefits, is to work on a regional single window to exchange data for shipment and to facilitate the procedures for trade. This is important. The idea of single window, it's, you know, you have the idea, it's within a country. But having a regional single window, maybe it's an ambitious, but it is ambitious that definitely it has a very significant rewards. So this is a third kind of suggestion. The fourth one, and this has to do with something that this report, as opposed to the first report of integration, kind of pushed up for the idea of green transition. Right? The fourth point is associated with that, is to promote green trade corridors where eco-friendly commodities are given priorities for clearance. So, for example, this could be done by two major ports, one in the south and one in the north, in order to have this kind of transition, to facilitate the transition of this given some priorities for these commodities. I think this is something that is going to have an important impact in terms of trade, in terms of this of green transition. I will stop here, and thank you.
Thank you very much, Ahmed, for very important intervention. Plenty also of ideas that go beyond the report, but it's also a call for implementation and for action. And I take good note something that you mentioned, that is true, that there is a tendency to provide much more recommendations to southern Mediterranean countries than to the other shores of the Mediterranean, while integration is not about this. Integration is about what each one has to do to promote a better economic coherence, and we observe sometimes that some developments in the north are detrimental of integration with the south, and the report is also paying attention to that. You have probably observed that we have a very artistic and beautiful background here that is being drawn as we are speaking, and taking some of the ideas to do something very beautiful that I think we will want to bring home afterwards. I don't know if there is a way. Of course, coming to Barcelona is capital of design, art, and creativity. We should have something of this nature. Thank you for this initiative. Mohammed and friends. Well, I'm very glad to move now to Fatma Marrakchi Sharfi, also good friend, and a professor also of economy in Tunis, and director of the Laboratory of Economic Integration in Tunis. Fatma is also a very good and permanent partner of the OECD. Thank you for your help, and has also been very closely associated to the consultations of this report. So Fatma, as we are speaking about convergence, and thinking in Tunisian experience, regulatory convergence, institutional cooperation, and the harmonization of rules as a necessity to promote trade, Tunisia has some good experiences. We have been working with Tunisia very much, for example, on the pharmaceutical sector, that for decades has been aligned with European standards and regulations to be producing goods for Europe. But this is not without also difficulties and challenges. So from the Tunisian perspective, what are the limits, how to enhance this kind of policy and regulatory convergence that is fundamental for the integration? What can we do better?
Merci Carlos, merci pour l'invitation et merci pour m'avoir inclus dans ce rapport et sur les différentes discussions. Bonjour à tous, bonjour mes collègues qui sont avec moi sur ce panel, bonjour honorable invité, merci pour cette question. En fait, sur le rôle fondamental des institutions et de la convergence réglementaire, je pense que l'ouverture commerciale à elle seule ne suffit pas à garantir une intégration réussie. Et l'expérience tunisienne avec les accords d'association signés dès 1995 avec l'Union européenne en est une illustration. D'abord, peut-être une petite idée sur comment sont perçus les accords de 1995 par les Tunisiens et quelles sont les études qui ont été faites pour évaluer ces accords d'association. Bien sûr, les accords de 1995 ont permis de libéraliser progressivement les échanges des biens industriels, facilitant ainsi l'accès au marché européen, et ils ont également contribué à renforcer le cadre réglementaire tunisien en l'alignant progressivement sur les normes européennes, qu'il s'agisse de la qualité des produits, de la sécurité alimentaire par exemple. En outre, et avec les accords de 1995, les entreprises tunisiennes ont bénéficié de programmes de mise à niveau où l'apport européen était substantiel grâce à un apport financier et un apport technique aussi. Mais le bilan reste mitigé. Les résultats de l'accord de 1995 sont jugés en deçà des attentes. Certes, les échanges avec la France sont excédentaires, par exemple, un peu moins, bon, ça dépend des années pour l'Allemagne et pour l'Italie, mais sur la France, le solde commercial reste excédentaire. Alors, ce que les Tunisiens jugent, comment est-ce que les Tunisiens jugent les accords de 1995? En fait, ils ont donné naissance à une économie à une double vitesse. Dans le sens où deux régimes ont émergé, notamment pour le commerce extérieur. Un régime offshore exportateur et un régime onshore qui sert uniquement le marché local. Et la dichotomie entre ces deux secteurs est très claire et entre les deux régimes est très claire. Et où la connexion est presque absente, dans la mesure où le secteur exportateur n'achète pas ses intrants sur le marché local. En fait, ce sont des entreprises qui achètent leurs inputs de l'Europe, confectionnent et réexportent vers l'Europe. Donc, la Tunisie n'a pas pleinement bénéficié de cet accord en termes d'industrialisation ou de diversification des exportations. Par contre, un modèle de gravité, là c'est un peu le scientifique qui parle, qui a été estimé dans un policy brief publié en juillet 2024 par les membres du laboratoire que j'ai l'honneur de diriger, le laboratoire d'intégration économique internationale, montre qu'il y a encore du potentiel pour les exportations tunisiennes sur l'Europe et principalement sur les principaux partenaires commerciaux de la Tunisie, même dans les secteurs traditionnels, tels que les textiles, habillements en cuir, tels que l'industrie mécanique et électrique ou l'agroalimentaire. Par ailleurs, si on examine l'indice de complexité des exportations tunisiennes publié par l'Atlas Economic Complexity par Harvard, bien sûr, par complexité, on entend le savoir et la technologie incorporés dans les biens exportés, ainsi que le capital humain tunisien contenu dans ces exportations. Cet indice montre que la Tunisie se situait à la place 73 en 1995 et aujourd'hui elle se situe à la place 51, donc elle a gagné 22 places. Par contre, le JVC Indicator for Tunisia, n'indiquant pas une diminution de la part de la valeur ajoutée étrangère dans les exportations tunisiennes, elles étaient de 26,5 en 1995, donc le contenu de la valeur ajoutée étrangère dans les exportations tunisiennes, et il atteint aujourd'hui en 2020, 33,2%. Donc, ceci n'est pas très brillant, dirais-je, dans la mesure où cette part n'est pas en train de diminuer. Par ailleurs, nous avons un accord que vous connaissez tous, l'ALECA, qui a été proposé en 2018 par l'Union européenne à la Tunisie et aussi aux autres pays de la rive sud de la Méditerranée, qui n'a pas été attractif pour la Tunisie. Rappelons que l'ALECA n'est pas un accord d'association conventionnel qui consiste à un démantèlement tarifaire, mais c'était, comme c'était le cas pour l'accord de 1995, mais plutôt un accord pour l'harmonisation de la réglementation tunisienne par rapport à la réglementation européenne. L'accord proposé, ou bien l'offre européenne, a été fortement critiqué par la société civile, syndicats, conseils de l'ordre, groupements professionnels, a été jugé asymétrique en faveur de l'Union européenne et surtout si on considère le volet concernant la mobilité des personnes qui était donc un facteur bloquant pour ces négociations. Alors, la coopération institutionnelle, oui, comme levier d'intégration. L'intégration ne peut réussir que si elle repose sur une coopération institutionnelle solide, à mon sens, et qui ne se limite pas à la transposition des normes, mais qui inclut un dialogue politique équilibré, des mécanismes de soutien technique et financier, comme ça a été le cas pour 1995, mais aujourd'hui la Tunisie elle est en face aussi des droits de douane auxquels font face les pays du monde vis-à-vis de l'administration américaine. Et aussi, la Tunisie, elle est face aussi à un ajustement carbone à la frontière qui va entrer en vigueur en 2026 et auquel elle doit faire face. Donc, des mécanismes de soutien technique et financier sont très fortement appréciés et une implication active des acteurs économiques et sociaux dans la définition des priorités du pays. Dans le futur, les accords devraient évoluer vers plus de réciprocité et de flexibilité en intégrant de nouvelles priorités stratégiques que sont la transition énergétique dont on a parlé, la digitalisation dont vous avez parlé aussi, Sikamali, l'inclusion financière et le développement durable. Donc, les accords devraient évoluer et pour être pleinement bénéfiques, les accords d'association doivent s'ouvrir davantage à de nouveaux volets et doivent porter sur des projets tels que le projet Elmet, par exemple, en Tunisie, qui est un projet de transport et peut-être aussi un projet de transport ferroviaire, projet de transport routier qui va faire le pont donc entre la rive sud de la Méditerranée et les pays de l'Afrique subsaharienne, une libéralisation progressive et encadrée de l'agriculture et des services, un soutien à la mobilité des personnes et la circulation des compétences, des mécanismes de financement innovants pour accompagner la transition verte et numérique, et une meilleure articulation avec les initiatives africaines, notamment la ZLECAf, donc qui est déjà entrée en vigueur. Donc, pour conclure, l'expérience tunisienne démontre que l'ouverture commerciale n'a de sens que si elle est accompagnée par une convergence réglementaire et institutionnelle solide, capable de soutenir la compétitivité des entreprises, réduire les asymétries et de préparer l'avenir des pays sud de la Méditerranée. L'enjeu désormais est d'aller vers les accords d'association et de coopération plus équilibrés, plus inclusifs et davantage tournés vers les défis contemporains, la transition énergétique, la digitalisation, l'innovation et la finance verte aussi. C'est à ce prix que la Tunisie et plus largement les pays du sud de la Méditerranée pourront tirer pleinement profit de leur double appartenance, à la fois au cœur de l'espace euro-méditerranéen et en première ligne du projet d'intégration africain. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Fatma, very much for your remarks that show also the importance of higher education institutions and research institutions to improve the quality of policy and provide with this also critical thinking that policymakers should be very aware of. So congratulations and thank you for your remarks. Time is running. Very kindly, we will have 10 more minutes. I will have a second round of questions, but please respond very, very shortly in this occasion, and then we will see if we have a little time for some questions from the public, because there is also a video. So very shortly, please, Senen, the Institute of the Mediterranean has been working very hard in the last months in a very vast process of consultation in preparation of the Pact of the Mediterranean that the European Union is preparing with partner countries. What have you heard from the public, from the people that attended the consultations, especially from the private sector, as we are speaking about economic integration?
So thank you very much. Really, yes, it is true. In the last few months, well, almost about a year now, but the last months, we have been involved in this very large consultation that has preceded the preparation of the new pact for the Mediterranean that the European Union and, well, the European Commission mainly is about to launch. It will be, as we have been told, in October, to be endorsed here then later on by the Ministerial Euromed here in Barcelona in late November. And there has been kind of a division of labor, so that the European Commission and the European Foreign Service have been making some consultations with governments, and they asked us to conduct a very large consultation process with civil society, academic world, etc., as European Institute of the Mediterranean, and I would say mainly through the network of Euromesco, which we are the academic secretariat, and we are funding that along with the European Commission. We are now 126 think tanks from all over the Arab world and the European Union countries. And we had the first meeting preparatory with the Commissioner Suica in Brussels, and then to very large, we convened two very large gatherings, conferences, one in Rabat and the other one in Cairo, and then a third one, very big, in Brussels. So we first, to start with, we prepared and launched and received the answers for a very long and structured questionnaire of experts. No, it's not a questionnaire of public opinion, it's an experts survey. About 900 and some experts from all countries in the Arab world and the European Union answered, which is a large number for an experts survey. And well, I can share with you some of the findings that, which in the way that you were just saying now, what are they asking for in the private sector or in the civil society? And I would say that, well, the Mediterranean Pact was aimed to ensure that voices beyond governments and institutions were included, and the focus on private sector and civil society. It's because they are ones who are most directly affected by the integration in their daily lives, access to jobs, markets, credit opportunities. And so this approach, bottom-up, was essential. What did private sector asking for? Well, strong demand for predictability and legal certainty. Firms cannot expand or invest if rules are unstable. Second demand, need for easier access to finance and credit, especially for SMEs, which are the backbone of most Mediterranean economies but remain underserved. Third demand, call for regulatory convergence. It has been mentioned by all speakers today. Fragmented rules rise costs and discourage cross-border trade and investment. And then I would underline as well one of the other requests, emphasis on modern infrastructure has been mentioned, logistic, ports, energy to enable competitiveness and participation in global value change. And from civil society, what is civil society asking for? Well, first, clear instance that the integration must be inclusive and equitable, not just about trade figures and data and discourses. Second, call to ensure that women, youth and vulnerable groups benefit directly from integration processes through jobs and opportunities. Then the importance of the sustainability that must be central with environmental and social sustainability given the climate challenges and the inequalities that have been mentioned all along during this morning. And well, of course, the transitions are the main issues to be tackled. Environmental transition and digital transition, as has been said. And finally, that integration should help address unemployment and social cohesion and not just macroeconomic growth. So this is, well, a resume of what the answer was we're pointing at from, well, this very large consultation that we have conducted in recent months. Well, I think that your report is giving good answers to all of these questions that people are making themselves, especially in South and East Mediterranean countries. And I hope this will be instrumental to guide the execution of this new pact for the Mediterranean that's about to be launched in these few months.
Thank you very much, Senel. Indeed, very much in line with the conclusions of the report. Now I will make the same question to Ahmed and Fatma. because with your experience in Egypt and Tunisia, both are very engaged, not only in this Euro-Mediterranean space, but you are working with other partners across the world. And the overall region, we see in the report, we have incorporated some information about China, about the Gulf countries, for example. So it's important to see also how the countries from the region are interacting with the rest of the region. And in particular, I have interest to have your views on two parts of the world. Fatma has already mentioned the AFCFTA, the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, that has a very important dynamic of economic transformation in Africa, and both Tunisia and Egypt are very much engaged on that. How this agreement is complementary, is synergetic, will Africa be an alternative to the traditional European markets of North African countries? That's the first. The second is about the Gulf. We see in the report, we have incorporated some information about the economic interactions between Gulf countries and the Euro-Mediterranean space, and we see that it's growing quite significantly in some aspects. So based also on your experience, how this can be capitalized, how making good use of the stronger interaction with the Gulf, also for the purposes of economic integration and coherence in the Euro-Mediterranean space.
Yeah, sure. Thank you very much for the question. I think it would be better to, maybe I choose the Gulf and Fatma will choose the Africa. Well, anyway. So now about the Gulf, and also I have to recommend the report for including data on Gulf countries, because this is quite important, and it kind of complement the big picture of what is going on in terms of the integration. Because when we're talking about integration, it's not only the Mediterranean, we have Africa, we have the Gulf, so the integration is more beyond the Mediterranean countries. Now, the first thing, when it comes to try to maximize the benefit for further integration between the Mediterranean countries and, say, the Gulf countries, the first thing is that the integration should be based on strategic partnership. It's not a kind of, benefit. It's not the idea of a zero-sum game. This is extremely important. Everybody should benefit. And the goal is to achieve prosperity for all countries. And this is very important, and this is very much associated with the possibility of conflict, is to minimize inter-regional inequality. Right? So this is the first thing. Second, the South Med could play a very important function in terms of kind of the intermediation between the Mediterranean, the Gulf, and Africa. So the centrality of North Africa, let's put it this way, I think it's extremely important. And we need to capitalize on that. Right? So we should not have this kind of exclusion kind of way of looking at things. So now there is an interest in the Gulf, so let's put aside the North Africa or the South Mediterranean and we'll just deal with the Gulf and then that's it. No, the idea of having this kind of network of cooperation, it's extremely important. Third, and this is my last point in order just to be quick for the sake of time, for each region there are some strengths, and we should capitalize on these strengths in each region. I would not say comparative advantage, but I would say strength. So the North Med, it's the know-how, the technology. The Gulf, they have the financial strength. They have the capacity to grow, right? Because also of the demographic structure of these countries. And the South Med, it has the market size, right? Especially when we're talking about a country like, for example, Egypt and Morocco, and talent and cost competitiveness. So having these kind of strength and having this mind, these strength, and try to capitalize on the strength, I would say this would very much maximize the benefit from having this integration between the region, including the Gulf. Thank you.
Je rejoins ce que vous dites, même dans l'espace africain. En fait, vous dites la chose suivante, il ne s'agit pas de partager le même gâteau, mais il s'agit d'agrandir le gâteau à partager. Et ça, c'est très important. Donc, le fait d'être intégré, je regarde les pays du Maghreb par exemple, le fait qu'ils soient intégrés traditionnellement avec l'Union européenne et avec l'ASLECAF, donc ils vont être intégrés dans le cadre de l'ASLECAF. Certes, le fait d'être intégré avec l'Union européenne est un point fort pour les pays du Maghreb. Mais ça représente aussi une faiblesse dans la mesure où il s'agit de diversifier les partenaires à l'échange et le côté africain peut représenter une opportunité pour nous, les pays sud de la Méditerranée. Il y a des avancées au niveau des échanges sud-sud, mais ils restent très faibles dans la mesure où, pour les pays de l'Union pour la Méditerranée, la plupart des échanges se font dans le cadre de l'Europe et non pas entre les pays sud, de la Méditerranée. Et donc, il y a des choses à faire à ce niveau-là et il y a des défis à relever. Les échanges sud-sud restent faibles et fragmentés. Les barrières non tarifaires, telles que vous l'avez dit tout à l'heure, telles que la complexité réglementaire, la lenteur des procédures douanières, l'hétérogénéité des normes techniques, freinent encore ces flux commerciaux. Et donc, il y a beaucoup de travail à faire à ce niveau-là. Un autre défi majeur réside dans les infrastructures logistiques, comme vous l'avez développé tout à l'heure, donc les ports, les réseaux de transport, les soft infrastructures aussi. Les corridors commerciaux manquent souvent et la modernisation de la digitalisation. Donc ces insuffisances limitent la fluidité des échanges et augmentent les coûts et réduisent la compétitivité des produits méditerranéens sur les marchés mondiaux d'une manière générale. Donc, pour améliorer ce potentiel, disons, ou bien les relations tripartites entre la rive sud de la Méditerranée, la rive nord de la Méditerranée et l'Afrique, les pistes qu'il faut envisager, je pense, seraient principalement d'abord moderniser les accords commerciaux. Ça ne doit pas être des accords commerciaux comme il était auparavant, pour dépasser la logique des seuls biens et intégrer désormais aussi les services, le numérique et l'investissement. Simplifier et harmoniser les procédures douanières grâce à la digitalisation et la reconnaissance mutuelle des normes. Renforcer les liens sud-sud en articulant davantage les accords méditerranéens avec l'ASLECAF. Donc, il faut que les accords méditerranéens englobent aussi donc, les pays africains. Et enfin, soutenir les PME exportatrices et essayer d'internationaliser celles qui ne le sont pas encore à travers l'accès à l'information commerciale et les plateformes numériques régionales. Donc, voilà pour faire assez rapidement.
Thank you very much. So we have exceeded largely the time of the panel, so unfortunately there is no time for dialogue with the participants, but maybe after the second panel we can have a round of questions. But we have another video because somebody that wanted to be with us today but finally has not been possible, Mr. Wissam Fatou, President of the Union of Arab Banks, an institution that is working very actively from the perspective of the commercial banks in the Arab countries in the economic integration. So we will put now the video of Wissam Fatou.
Your Excellencies, distinguished colleagues and partners, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Allow me first to extend my apologies for not being able to join you in person today in Barcelona. However, I am deeply honored to address this conference through this recorded message on the occasion of this important gathering hosted by the Union for the Mediterranean in collaboration with the OECD, the UAE regional esteemed collaborators. I wish to convey my sincere gratitude to the organizers for their kind invitation and to commend their unwavering efforts to advance the cause of regional integration within our shared Mediterranean region. The theme of today's panel, Trade and Finance Integration, Opportunities, Challenges, and the Way Forward, could not be more timely in a world marked by mounting economic pressures, geopolitical uncertainty, and evolving development priorities. We are reminded that regional integration is not only a strategic goal, it is a necessity for our shared prosperity and resilience. As Secretary General of the Union of Arab Banks, I have had the privilege of witnessing how financial institutions, when well coordinated, can serve as powerful drivers for integration, stability, and development across borders. Today, the Union of Arab Banks brings together over 340 banking and financial institutions from across the Arab world and Europe. Our mission is deeply rooted in strengthening cooperations, promoting regulatory harmonization, and enhancing financial inclusion. We believe that trade and finance must move hand in hand if we are to unlock the true economic potential of our region. However, ladies and gentlemen, despite progress, important challenges still slow down trade and financial integration between Arab countries and their Mediterranean neighbors. Efforts such as the Euro-Mediterranean Partnership and GAFTA have created opportunities, but trade within the region is still limited. Different regulations, complex rules of origin, and weak infrastructure continue to make cross-border trade difficult. Financial integration is also incomplete. Political and institutional issues add further obstacles. Overcoming these challenges through closer cooperation and practical reforms will be essential to unlock the region's economic potential. These obstacles not only affect trade flows, but also limit the capacity of our financial system to mobilize a capital towards sustainable development. Limited access to trade finance, especially for small and medium enterprises, SMEs, remains a critical issue in the MENA region. However, I remain optimistic. I believe that the Mediterranean region is notably positioned to serve as a hub of innovation, cooperation, and inclusive growth if we can work together more effectively. Looking forward, I would like to propose a few recommendations. First, the establishment of a Mediterranean Financial Integration Task Force that would bring together central banks, development partners, and the private financial institutions to outline a strategic path for harmonized policies and infrastructure. In parallel, fostering stronger partnership between Arab and European banks will be essential to co-creating innovative financial instruments that are tailored to the specific needs of our region. In conclusion, trade and financial integration is not just a technical issue. It is a political and development priority. We must go beyond declarations and focus on building a practical framework that connects public and private actors and turns policies into real action. The Union of Arab Banks, ladies and gentlemen, stands ready to contribute its expertise, networks, and resources to support this shared agenda. Together, we can transform our region into a model of connectivity, resilience, and inclusive prosperity. Thank you again for inviting the Union of Arab Banks to this important conference. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, dear Carlos, and thank you to all the prominent speakers of the first panel. We proceed immediately to the next panel that I have the honor and the pleasure to moderate. It's a panel dedicated to infrastructure connectivity, movement of people, as well as higher education and research. These are the three remaining domains covered by this progress report on regional integration. For that, please allow me to call upon the speakers for this panel. So please join me, Mr. Stefano Dotto, Head of Sector for Good Governance and Security at the European Commission, DG MENA, and the Pact for the Mediterranean, of course, we will be talking about it. Mr. Hugues Mousset, Head of Intelligence Unit at the European Training Foundation, ETF, our very close partner. Dr. Hala Barakat, the Senior Director of the Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation at the School of Business at the American University in Cairo. Dr. Karim Bitar, Professor of International Relations and former Director of the Institute of Political Science at the St. Joseph University of Beirut. And, of course, my very dear friend, Ms. Francesca Musso, Executive Director of the Young Professionals Network. As you can see, we have a very diverse spectrum here in this panel and the one before. And I'm very glad that we can listen to different segments, different representatives of our stakeholders and partners. I remind myself and your good selves that we're the only thing standing between the audience and lunch. So we will have a very interesting discussion, and I will count on you to help me stay on the time mark. And I will start with Stefano and a question about the new pact for the Mediterranean. We've listened to the director in his video message talking about the new pact and about a number of links that involve the Union for the Mediterranean. And my question to you is whether you can tell us more and what role do we foresee for the Union for the Mediterranean going forward in alignment with the pact. So let's please listen to Stefano.
Hello. Yeah, it works. Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Mohamed, for the question. Indeed, we're in a very uncomfortable place being here between you and your lunch. We'll try to shorten it. I'll try to speak quickly. Just a couple of elements before I speak. Indeed, my director, Francisco Castello, spoke about the pact, and I will develop a bit more on certain selected technical aspects. Take them as case studies. A method that can be extended to more topics. One thing that I would like also to start with is to praise the OECD for the quality of the report. I know you don't need it. You don't need me to praise you, but it's an impressive report of very high quality and very useful, and I think that we will use it for quite a while. And being myself a former economist, I really enjoyed reading it, and it's here, and taking into account the recommendations. So one more caveat before I go a bit more into detail is that when I will say that the pact will, I mean the proposal of the Commission for the pact refers to, because the pact is not out yet, it will be in the public, I mean, can I say, it will leak very widely in a very few days, because it will start to circulate in more restricted areas, but you will be able to find it on Politico or other fora. And what is important is the phase of endorsement that we will have on the 28th of November on the occasion of the UfM Forum, where we have the endorsement by the partner countries. So just to remind, three pillars of the pact will be people first, stronger and more integrated economies, and security, resilience, and migration management. The Director Gassello has developed these a bit more. Let me start by the issue precisely on resilience and migration management. The recommendation of the OECD report reads, allow me to quote it, prioritize partnerships and agreements that address the diverse needs of both origin and destination countries, as well as workers and employers. To achieve this, countries should seek to involve a large range of stakeholders in the policymaking process. This is exactly what we've been doing. We have run extensive consultations to design the pact, and this is the approach that the Commission intends to use to focus on strengthening and aligning labour markets demand with education systems, to promote mobility, and the proposal of the new pact will contain elements for mobility of university and researchers throughout the Mediterranean region, Euro-Mediterranean region. In order to support partner countries and also to address EU needs, there are three things we intend to do. First, bridge a gap between education and employment, fortify the institution, and promoting regular migration pathways. So this is in the reciprocal advantage of EU countries, EU labour markets, and should allow the partner countries to retain the skills and avoid brain drain, so to support their own socio-economic growth. On the link between economy, mobility, and migration, of course there are large disparities. As several speakers mentioned before, there are large disparities in terms of socio-economic development. We have large disparities within the EU, and the disparities are even larger between EU, among South Mediterranean countries, and the third block that we don't talk about enough, which is who are still members of the UfM, and it's the countries which have destined to join the EU, which, with the alignment with EU standards, have accelerated their development. Director Gastelum mentioned the Team Europe initiative that converges with the OECD recommendation making regional trade more inclusive. Allow me to open a parenthesis. For the very few people who don't know what the Team Europe initiative is, it's a method. It's a method through which the European Commission puts in place, unblocks public EU funds, and then works together with EU member states to catalyze more funding and to develop joint activities. So this TI means to addresses sustainable trade and investment, vocational training and skills, and inclusive entrepreneurship. And this is a good example of where we can build on the UfM, because the Union for the Mediterranean is actively involved in the management and the operation of this Team Europe initiative. A lot more can be done, of course, to improve inclusivity in the region, and this is why we are, as Commission, we are engaged in discussion on regional level, and notably in the framework of the Union for the Mediterranean. That's why we're strong supporters of the Union for the Mediterranean. And this is why we have invested a lot of energies in the event on employment and labor in Malta, which was supposed to take place at ministerial level in November, if I'm not wrong. In October, sorry, in October, so pretty soon. Previous speakers spoke about financial integration. Despite the fact that there are significant flows of FDIs towards the countries, the Southern Mediterranean countries struggle to retain these investments because of exogenous and endogenous shocks and situations, instability, security concerns, and economic uncertainty. And to counter this situation, together with the member states, the European Union has unfolded and has rolled out a number of financial instruments to promote entrepreneurship, inclusive economy, women empowerment, and the twin green and digital transition in the region. My apologies also if you hear some keywords that my director mentioned before, one of which is precisely this twin green and digital transition in the region. And for the future, our Pact for the Mediterranean intends to provide a new impetus towards regional and particular financial integration. This is why the Commission has put forward an ambition proposal for the multi-annual financial framework after 25-27. And take it as a signal that the European Union intends to do more and be more engaged in the region. However, the report also underlined that domestic investment climate does not allow, is an obstacle to investment and deters investors to remain and come to the region because in particular of domestic regulations. And this is where the UfM can play a significant role. It can serve as a platform to exchange experience and work on this regulatory convergence that previous speakers also mentioned. Then the jury is out whether the Union for the Mediterranean has to be involved directly in the investment process and to contribute to the investments. A couple of points on connectivity and transport. Of course, efficient transport is essential for socioeconomic development, and the UfM is a fantastic platform to work on this. The 2024 Ministerial Conference was a milestone for us because it gave the perspective of future regional work and future regional integration and endorsed the Regional Transport Action Plan. And not only this, it overcame an issue that we have before, and it gave the green light to working towards the integration of the trans-Mediterranean transport network to be connected with the trans-European network. And allow me to remind that projects which qualify as trans-European networks benefit of a favorable treatment for funding by the European Investment Bank. And this, how can I say, transnational regional approach was one of the elements that has been mentioned by previous speakers and by Professor Kamali before, who also mentioned the need for regulatory convergence. What better place than the Union for the Mediterranean for its working group on transport and for the next level, I mean the ministerial level, to push for this regulatory convergence. Allow me also to remind one successful example on which I had a chance to work, where the UfM proved a catalyst. It's because of the UfM had, gave this additional nudge that we have emission-controlled area in the Mediterranean Sea, which aims to depollute maritime transport in the Mediterranean area. A couple of points on energy and climate. Of course, clean and affordable energy is indispensable for socioeconomic growth, and climate initiatives must be the integral aspect of economic and social integration. The UfM has a key role in promoting policy dialogue in these areas through its platforms and working groups at the ministerial and the technical level. The UfM has also been very successful in raising the public awareness on the importance of climate action in the Mediterranean and on the role of the Mediterranean, on the role that the Mediterranean countries can have in decarbonizing economies, and not least the impact that climate change is having on the Mediterranean region, which we know is being hit harder than many other areas in the world by climate change. So we need to improve attractiveness for private sector investments, in particular on renewable energies. We know that this is difficult because it's a difficult topic to work for private investors. It's a difficult investment area to grasp and to work on, and this is where, again, the UfM can help working on regulatory convergence and awareness raising, and where it can help the countries in the region to be leaders of sustainable energy and climate transition. I would link, previous speakers mentioned Nobel Prizes. I will be a bit more humble and mention the speech of President Commissioner von der Leyen, that just 2 days ago reminded in the speech of the State of the Union that the EU remains strongly committed to support the green transition. So there's a work we can do all together for the sake of our citizens. And now I would like to conclude with two things. First of all, remind the keywords of several speeches and of in serious speeches. One is regulatory convergence, another one is regional integration, and the third one that I noted down is regional integration. These are comparative advantages that no one else has more than the Union for the Mediterranean. These are things on which we have to work together. So, and this is why we need a functional Union for the Mediterranean. Director Gastello mentioned what is needed to make it more functional, and it's really worth doing it for our citizens, and in particular for the youth in the entire region. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, dear Stefano, for this very positive message. I think it comes very timely also with colleagues from the different divisions that you've mentioned in charge of climate change and climate action, in charge of transport and urban development, among other things. Thank you very much, and I move immediately to the next speaker, Mr. Mousset. The European Training Foundation has become a global reference when it comes to skills and skill development in general. And my question to you is twofold. First of all, what skills do you see more in demand going forward? And the second question, with the mobility and the accelerating mobility of young people mostly in mind, but also the volatility of the economies of the region, what transferable skills do you think would come more handy for young people going forward?
Ahmed, and good morning, everyone. Very happy to participate in this panel. So first of all, let me say a little bit of where I'm talking from. So the European Training Foundation is an agency of the EU who works with external partners of the EU, the European neighborhood, and specifically on human capital development. So we are really specialized, so to say, in skills and skills development, which is like the underlying foundation of what we've been discussing along this morning. I know that we are the panelists and if we are the only people between this morning and lunch. So I will try to give some bits and some bits of knowledge tapas, so to say. So the growing demand, you won't be surprised, goes very well with what has been said this morning. And we have for many years now conducted a number of studies and analyses along countries, especially, and I would say mostly, countries that belong to the UfM and that are Mediterranean countries on different sectors of different approaches. So the three things that I'm going to say is really based on documentation and analysis. The first one, what we see growing is everything that relates to, of course, the green transition and sustainability in different directions, I would say. The first one is efficiency, especially, but not only in terms of energy. We have discussed that extensively this morning. The second one is also about compliance. So it's not only about technology, but it is also everything that regards the direction and including legal direction that is being taken by different companies, but also the public sector compliance to the different agreements that the countries of the Mediterranean, the European countries, and countries in the world have taken internationally. And also another element of that is everything that is not touched directly by the green technologies, but the circular economy also is quite important. And as we touch on transportation and mobility, it is very important to think of that as an economical approach rather than different sectors of the economy. Within this bucket of growing demand, the second one, here again, it's not very original, but well documented, is on everything that regards digital and data-driven. And here again, there would be different aspects. The first one is really high-level digital competencies and skills that are needed from engineers to technicians, of course, to develop this digital transition, but also every, I would say, lower level skills that are needed in many domains from all the citizens in regards of using what is digital. So it has an impact on things like agriculture, for example, but also, of course, transportation. And by transportation here, I don't mean the big logistical issues that we have, but also transporters themselves. So different levels of approach in the digital and data-driven transition. I will keep for the end, I know I have to hurry a little bit, the AI part. And of course, the last one, it goes without saying, and it has been touched on this morning, which are all the skills needed at different levels for the value chains of the region, you know, from the highest engineering needs of the value chain, but also, I would say, the financial engineering up to tourism, for example. So all these kind of skills are very important. And here that makes transition with your second question or second set of questions about the transferability. So I would say that the first element of transferability is not such the kind of skills that you were talking about, but rather the common approach that we take for qualification, a precise definition of qualification, everything that regards recognition of qualification for this transferability of people, which is very important. On this regard, I think that the partnership and the cooperation must be at very different levels. So there is the level of policies for, you know, to align, for example, the different national qualification systems with ESCO, for example, or international qualifications, but also up to the different institutions, tertiary institution, higher education, post-secondary institution, which should probably, as they are already doing, work better together to have this kind of cohabilitation, for example, and co-diplomation of students. So it has been existing for a long time in higher education, especially in the European Union, but it also probably should be thought as a pathway of development of transferability. Now, for the rest of it is things that major international institutions have worked and documented for a long time. I'm thinking of our colleagues at OECD, at the World Bank, at UNESCO. So it's all these core soft skills, as we say, that have been determined. And actually what we see, because part of the big data that we use big data on online job vacancies that we hoover from all of our countries, but also different elements of discussions that we have. You know, these kind of skills that appear very, I would say, common or very general are the ones that are most needed and most requested, so which is, you know, critical thinking, communication and language, working together, leadership, and so on. And of course, one of the key issues in education, which has been on the table and on the international agenda since at least Chomsky in 1990, which is learning to learn. So in the demography that we are in, but also in the many changes of the economies, learning to learn, it's something, this space, baseline of education that has been important for a long time, but we should keep continuing working on, because upskilling and reskilling, whether for the younger population within the south of the Mediterranean or the older population of the north, is key and will be important. I just want to finish maybe with two add-ons. I think in all of this, we have to have a very strong, not only forecast, but foresight perspective. Alongside the speech of the Union was released also the foresight report of the European Union, and one of them is reimagining education, which I think is very important. So we need to work on foresight, and for that it means having good data, which we don't have in all of the countries. So continuing to produce data, to have good data, to exchange data, but I would say also to reimagine the kind of data that we want to have. So not only administrative data, but also this kind of data that we can mine alongside the digital world is something important. And now the last thing is that, of course, the big question, which might be the elephant in the room, is what is AI how is AI going to impact the learning markets and the needs? There has been a lot of reports. I don't know if you remember the first report a few years ago, I think 2017, from McKinsey said, 47% of jobs will be destroyed and changed in the upcoming years. It has not happened yet, okay? So we continue in different institutions to say it will have a big impact. The question is not whether it will or not have a big impact, but when it begins. And the thing probably is that when it begins, you all read something about the 2037 report by people from the Silicon Valley. We don't know exactly what's behind. But when it begins, it will have a strong impact. So it's coming, it's just that we don't know when it's coming. We have also worked alongside our colleagues from UNESCO, OECD, and others on this impact in the neighboring countries. Sorry, I was a little bit long. It was more than a tapas, and I end here.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So learning to learn. No, we've all heard about unlearning. Now we need to also familiarize with new terms. So thank you very much. And I move immediately to Dr. Hala Barakat. We've been hearing a lot of criticism to regional integration at a sub-regional level, especially in the south. Things come up in reports talking about, for example, isomorphic mimicry, that we're trying to imitate something that succeeded elsewhere, but without having the competences, the know-how, the capacities in place. And my question to you is in the field of education. How can we really push forward regional integration at a south-south level? What's keeping the region, especially the MENA region, from going forward with a fully blown program like Erasmus+, for example, for the Arab region or for the MENA region? So you're the expert, and we're keen on listening.
Okay. First of all, good morning. Thank you, Mohammed, for inviting me to sit on the panel and the UfM for the invitation to attend today's event. So this question is very relevant and important at the time because, as you said, we have not seen a major South-South program that really impacts the education scene in the region, whether it is in North Africa or the Gulf. What we have seen is more of bringing in international education institutions in the region. Despite having historical education universities in the region, one of course, is like Cairo University, the American University in Cairo. We have not yet seen that powerful programs where South-South come together. I think there are key pillars, and we need to move on from my own experience in order to push that forward. Number one, we don't see a collaborative research. We don't have a regional knowledge database, a base of knowledge that's exclusive for the region, where we can build on it, like really solving the societal needs of this part of the world. This is very important. Most of the universities they are doing great, but in silos. They are targeting only the countries or very minimum that we see like a more of a regional knowledge. The second thing is that, of course, the professional and academic mobility, okay? Not only the students exchange and the visa regulations, also the political unrest in the region have been like draining the progress of this integration. When I'm talking about not only from at the student level, but also at the professorship level, we are not seeing that much. This is not only about academia, it's about building the networks. That the networks of academics in the region, we don't see this like happening on a more of a formal organization. So I think this is actually one of the things that needed on a government level to be worked on, not only from academic angle. Also, I believe we have to look into technology as I said, and how digital platforms, common digital platforms, can facilitate the integration and the exchange of knowledge, students, professorship, research, maybe have a joint virtual research labs, for example. And if we cannot move for regulations, visa regulation, financial hurdles, but now technology can help the region leverage that coming together when it comes to programs. You have mentioned, Mohammed, Erasmus. For us, Erasmus is a gold standard, okay? Because Erasmus brings on, it unified the national identity of Europe. Actually, looking up to programs like Erasmus is very, very important to learn how this came up and still evolving. So we need this national identity and cohesion in order to bring a program that is very unique to the region. I think the reason why this is holding us back is, number one, we need to have a political will, a strong political will and strategic direction of the importance of the cohesion of academia and research. Second, we need to look into trust and collaboration between the academic institution. Trust is a very important issue. We can see some collaboration between different universities, but it's not something that is sustainable or strong to build on like a bigger regional program. So we need to work on trust among these institutions. Last but not least, the financial resources. Of course, the financial resources still would be a major factor affecting not only the start, because we have seen a lot of initiative that come up, but the financial model of its sustainability is not well studied, so they tend to die after a very short period of time. So we need to have like a committed, shared regional vision for different academic institutions and governments from the region to come up with that, a program like Erasmus. To move the path forward, my recommendation for this would be to start small with very small initiative that really looks into eminent topics of the region, like consortiums, which at AUC actually we have started like a regional family business consortium. We try to bring not only academia, but small and medium enterprises that's family-led from the region and convene them annually to talk about like challenge, way forward, missed research in this topic. Thank you so very much. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Always starting small with a pilot project and then take it to the next level. It sounds like a community of practice, what you're describing. Thank you very much. I move to Dr. Karim Bitar, and from a policy perspective, the report offers very interesting action-oriented, actionable recommendations, if you may. How can we take these policies to the next level towards promoting a deeper regional integration? How can we strive to achieve some sort of policy convergence in the areas of priority covered by the report, especially connectivity, mobility, and higher education and research?
Thank you, Mohammed. Thank you for having me. I would like to basically tell you that I usually... Yes, I'll start all over again. Thanks to the Union for the Mediterranean and its partners, the OECD and all others, for inviting me. I would like to thank Mohammed for pointing out these actionable measures and precisely asking this question. Because to be completely honest with you, I have been attending many conferences this year about the 30th anniversary of the Barcelona process. And at most of these conferences,
the mood was extraordinarily pessimistic. And I was quite happy when I read your report, when I saw your recommendations, when I checked out the OECD policy papers and the UfM action plan, that you are not seeing the glass half empty. Most of our students, most of our diplomats today seem to have succumbed to resignation, and I think it's the worst possible time to succumb to resignation. Now, let's be honest, I speak as an international relations professor. The global geostrategic landscape is extraordinarily grim today. We are witnessing a return of Machtpolitik. We are witnessing very crudely the amorality of this power politics, the return of the game of nations, human beings becoming mere commodities. However, it's still necessary to try to reconcile you know, the old formula, the pessimism of the intellect and the optimism of the will. And this is precisely what you are trying to do, and thank you for this, because just a few months ago, the French Foreign Affairs Ministry and the Agence Française du Développement had organized a similar event in Malaga and other Arab intellectuals in Cordoba, and everywhere I only heard mentions of the political stumbling blocks, the failures of the past, etc. And you are the ones who are trying to put your hands on significant projects, how to move forward, how to try to build upon what has been accomplished. And I'm not saying this only as a way of exchanging flattery or pleasantries, because what you are doing is very difficult because you are swimming against the tide. When the UfM was launched, Barcelona 1995, it was a completely different geopolitical climate. It was the time of the demise of apartheid in South Africa, the Oslo Accords in the Middle East, the UN conferences on women, on the environment. Everyone thought that liberal democracy has triumphed throughout the world. And today we see that we are basically in a phase of counter-revolution. And what can we do in this phase of counter-revolution, the return of authoritarianism, is precisely focus on what can work, how can we improve higher education, culture, and I would also like to thank Professor Barakat because she basically read my mind and many points that I had written down were already mentioned, so you will be able to have lunch earlier. I just wanted to mention a few points that I think could help us move forward. I was born in Lebanon. I spent part of my time in Lebanon, and like many countries in the region, it faces massive emigration. And the silver lining, some would say, is the remittances. As you know, Lebanon is perhaps the world's record when it comes to remittances, almost 1/3 of our global GDP. If you count per capita, it's higher than Egypt. Lebanon has barely 6 million persons. Egypt, I think, over 110 million. So these remittances help the Lebanese basically deal with a huge financial crisis, but it is not a solution. So one of the ideas I heard recently, and former Egyptian Minister Nabil Fahmy had been lobbying for it for several years, is the so-called Mo Salah clause. The idea that, you know, just like football star Mo Salah, when he left Egypt to go play in Europe, his team, the team that originally trained him in Egypt when he was between 13 and 17 years old, gets a percentage of every transaction. So when he signs to play for Liverpool or for another major European team, his home country gets something in return. And this speaks to us as Lebanese because we train the best and the brightest students, and it is heartbreaking to see them leave this country every single year. They are emigrating in droves. Yes, they do support their families, but Lebanon is investing a lot in its education and not getting enough back. And I think Minister Fahmy and many others in France and in Spain and in Egypt have been trying to think about the mechanisms that we could use to bring to life this Mo Salah clause to allow all countries to benefit when there are migrations of not necessarily football stars, but successful professionals, doctors, engineers, lawyers, etc., in order to have some sort of win-win situation. I totally agree with what was said on university networks. They do exist, but they are unevenly leveraged. Erasmus funds credit mobility, joint degrees, capacity building, but I think we do need, as Mediterraneans, to build bridges with other parts of the world. This is what we tried to do in Lebanon. There is a group of about 100 universities from across the world that formed the Global Campus of Human Rights. It was based in Venice, in the Lido. They invited students every year, students from across the world, to study democratization and human rights in the Arab world from Venice. So what we tried to do in Beirut is to convince them that Lebanon, being one of the countries where you can still speak your mind freely despite all the political upheaval and the wars, etc., we brought this program to Beirut, and now this Arab Master for Democratization and Human Rights is based in Lebanon. It has partnerships with 7 or 8 Arab universities from Jordan, from Egypt, from Morocco, and it is part of a network with Latin American universities, African universities, European universities. The European program is still based in Venice, but it made perfect sense to study the Middle East from the Middle East, because this is how we break the distorted lenses through which the West has been perceiving the Middle East since 1798 and arguably before. If we want to finally do away with Orientalism and racism and prejudice that are allowing the current colonial practices, the time has come to reclaim the narratives. And this is where the Union for the Mediterranean can play a very important role. I think beyond helping mobility, the role of higher education and culture cannot be overstated. There is an apocryphal quote by Jean Monnet, the founding father of the European Union. He allegedly said, if I were to start all over again, I would start with culture, rather than starting with coal and steel and concrete steps. So I think this is exactly what we have to do. Start with culture, start with higher education, reclaim the narratives, and you already have, I'm not going to enter into the technicalities because I saw that you already have all the implementation roadmaps. So thank you again, and let's remember to always see the glass half full.
Thank you. So reclaim the narrative. I see the happy face of our Deputy Secretary General for Higher Education and Research, Joan Borrell. We couldn't agree more. And we have our final speaker for this panel, and our very dear friend, Francesca Musso, who will give us a fresh insight. Because when we talk about mobility of people, we always come against so many obstacles in the region, having to do with security, having to do with bureaucracy and visa requirements, things that really get in the way of young people co-creating value for the region. What's your experience with this, Francesca? Briefly, give us a piece of your mind.
Okay. So first of all, thank you for having me. I don't know how many of you have heard about that history of a student that knew only the anatomy of the elephant. So every question that his professor was doing, he was relating it with the elephant anatomy. In this case, my elephant is human capital development, Western Balkans, and concrete means of cooperation. And yes, everything that was already mentioned facilitate regional cooperation, and even what you already mentioned, like visa and everything else, are an important factor if we want to speak about regional cooperation and how to create a more enabling environment for the regional cooperation to take place. As it was already mentioned, Euro-Mediterranean region has one of the youngest population in the world, and even in the southern Mediterranean countries, 48% of the population are young people. That means that they are not the future, as that stupid expression says. They are here and now, and we should provide them with concrete means and with concrete opportunities to materialize regional cooperation and how to further develop their skills. While I was preparing for this intervention, I was going through some Erasmus evaluation studies, and basically what it was already mentioned in those studies was the fact that all the participants of those regional mobility programs had more soft skills increased, communication, time management, and all other skills that were already mentioned from Mr. Mossi, if I pronounced it well, your surname. That means, and even more, they were showing high employability rates that for a region such as the Mediterranean one, where the employability of young people is very high, it means that we should invest even more in concrete programs that are focused on youth mobility. I did a small research. I work in this region, but still I don't know everything what is going on. And I double-checked with friends of mine who work in the region, and there is not a single sustainable youth mobility program for the Mediterranean region. There are UfM events, which are great events, and of course that I highly recommend them. There are Erasmus programs that sometimes involve even Mediterranean countries, but it is not happening in a sustainable way. And I think that this is what we should aim to address, or to try to have certain concrete programs or certain concrete initiatives that address different sectors of regional cooperation. And in the case of the Western Balkans, there are already a few positive practices. You have a Pact for the Mediterranean, we have common regional market, the Mediterranean has the Barcelona process, the Western Balkans has the Berlin process. So both of those political processes can be used to produce more concrete initiatives to foster regional cooperation, as I already mentioned, to boost a more enabling environment for the regional cooperation to take place. And there are simple measures which can be undertaken. Some of them were already mentioned from Dr. Karim as well, or from my co-panelist as well. And one of them is visa regime, traveling with ID card, or unifying education qualifications, or, I repeat it again, having concrete programs that support mobility of young people, of businesses, or of different sectors. And I believe that this report is a very timely one, and thank you again for having me and for publishing it, since it provides a very clear overview where the region stands when we speak about regional cooperation. And I think that together with the Pact for the Mediterranean, it may produce some concrete initiatives that can be that can further boost regional cooperation in the region. And a last thing, if someone would say to me like 10 years ago that Francesca, in 2025 you would be leading an organization that does 100 of different things on regional cooperation in Western Balkans, regional internship schemes, regional this and regional that, I would have started laughing. Because back then in the Western Balkans, regional cooperation, it was not such an easy thing. And still, even between Kosovo and Bosnia and Herzegovina, there are visa regimes. But still, there are positive steps that have been undertaken. And in my view, and I'm sure not only in my view, the Mediterranean region has such a great potential in terms of economy, energy, youth, education, etc., etc. But now it's the momentum that from policy recommendations to go in some concrete actions and some concrete initiatives that sometimes they need a top-down approach to involve government as well, to invest in those programs, and of course to be formalized through such kind of political documents. So yeah, once again, thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you very much, dear Francesca. And thank you to all the panelists. I invite you all to a group photo and the photographer as well, if he's around. And please hang in, because then we will have the closing remarks just by the way of wrapping up. So photo first for the panel, and then I will call upon the two speakers for the closing remarks. It is now my pleasure for the closing remarks to call upon our dear friend Carlos Conde from OECD, and also on Ambassador Meltem Buyukarakash, our Deputy Secretary General for Economic Development and Employment. So I invite them both to the theater. I can't see Carlos. Okay. So if Ambassador Meltem can then deliver the closing remarks, the floor is yours.
Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, at the end of a morning session full of inspiring exchanges and insightful panels, please allow me to express our gratitude to all the participants in today's ceremony and to reaffirm our commitment to promoting economic regional integration, not only as an end, but rather as means and fulcrum to the greater end of building a region of peace, stability, and prosperity for our people. Nothing is more timely as we mark the 30th anniversary of the Barcelona process, which has integration at its very crux. At times, the scale and the scope of the regional challenges and the corroding effect of the global disruptions make integration seem like uncompelling romanticism, especially in a context of prolonged conflict and divergence. But in our history in this part of the world has shown us in no uncertain terms that our region is synonymous with resilience and reconciliation. We have listened to the experts today. We have learned through the report about positive trends that give us reasons for hope, but without being oblivious to the gaps that call for policy reforms and coordinated solutions. Action-oriented and evidence-based policy recommendations, such as updating trade agreements and expanding their scope to include services and digital trade, diversifying financing tools to empower private sector, improving cross-border infrastructure to support trade and energy links, prioritizing green energy, digital connectivity, and multimodal transport, increasing investments in knowledge and innovation, are precisely the fabulous yarns spun by the Progress Report developed by OECD with the generous support of the German Development Cooperation. I would like to extend our sincere thanks to both of our long-standing partners. The findings of the report will guide us in our endeavors to promote regional cooperation and integration in a very strategic but also one of the world's least economically integrated regions. I do not intend to take stock of everything mentioned today because my colleagues will be drafting an outcome document summarizing the key takeaways from today's ceremony, and the progress report itself will be made available on our website for you all to consult. However, I would like to stress that as the UfM Secretariat, we stand committed to both leading and accompanying all efforts aimed at bridging the current gaps and tackling the economic fragmentation of our region. We trust in our convening power and in the commitment of our ecosystem to bring around the change that we all wish to see in our region. Please allow me to end my closing remarks with a quote by the great Turkish poet Nazım Hikmet, in which he says, "Believe in seeds, earth and the sea, but in people above all." Nothing is more humanizing than this insight, which will always guide our moral compass at the UfM Secretariat. Thank you all very much. Enjoy your lunch and have safe travels back home. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Secretary General, for your words, and thank you to all the participants here and online. We have been followed by many people across the Mediterranean, which is a very good signal of the interest of this report and the Euro-Mediterranean collaboration. I will not add anything that, except by saying that now it's about implementation, and this should be a very inclusive process, of course. Institutionally, the UfM and the OECD will continue working very closely, but also with partners. The European Union was with us, GIZ, Spain, and many others. And not only inclusive in the process of delivering on the recommendations, but also inclusive in the objectives. It was very clear today that this is a process that needs to provide more coherence, more equality between the countries in the ultimate goal of economic growth and prosperity, and especially an economic process of integration that must benefit all the citizens, and especially those that have more difficulties because they are suffering because of the situations of conflict and humanitarian stress that exist in the region, but also segments of the population that traditionally have been out of the economic opportunities, especially youth and women. So we will continue working closely together. This is the moment to thank everyone that has been involved in the report, people that were incorporated to the consultation process, the UfM and Diar Mohamed. You have been instrumental in doing the report. I also want to report some colleagues that are here and helping us very much. Blanca Moreno, who is with us and helped very much also in the overall report. We have with us Paqui Santoja for the Casa Mediterráneo. A very interesting short part of the report is a case study of the collaboration between the city of Alicante in Spain and the city of Oran in Algeria, the two cities that are separated by the sea, but are very, very close historically with all kinds of links, economic, cultural, educational, and we have a good illustration of this. And I would like also to thank all my colleagues from the OECD. This is an exercise in which most of the House has been involved with the different directorates of the House, trade, education, science and technology, environment, all of them. Thank you very much to all the colleagues, especially to Maria Rosa Lunati, who has been leading all the process, and I don't see here now, but she made a great job, and some colleagues that are following us online but couldn't join us today, especially Roger Forés. Thank you, Roger, very much. And also Giovanni Uono and all the team there in Paris. Thank you very much to all, and maybe in 3 years we will be back with the third edition of the report with still more progress and a good implementation achievement. Thank you.
You might think it's a miracle we finished on time. It is time for lunch indeed. A very big round of applause to all our partners and stakeholders. Thank you for being here with us. A huge thank you to the team without putting names, because we're one big family in the UfM. Enjoy your lunch. Those of you traveling back, have a safe flight, and do check the report on our website. This is a closing, but it's a pretext for a new beginning in which we will follow up on the policy recommendations and try together to put them into action. Thank you. Thank you very much.